You're watching News Now from Fox. I'm Daytona Everett. We've got a lot of politics going on. Yesterday was the first presidential debate, and again, these candidates are heading around the country right now, including Minnesota. This is President Trump's 7th visit to Minnesota since taking office. We actually have one of our Fox reporters out there on the ground, Hannah Flood. Hannah, how's it looking out there?
And people are starting to file in for this debate here, this speech here. Speech is expected to start at 8 o'clock. It sounds like a local representative here is about to take the podium. I will say we are in northern Minnesota in the fall. It is chilly out here, about 45 degrees, so you can see a lot of supporters out there really bundled up, but a big campaign stop for the president, just a day after this big historic debate.
Now, Hannah, I'm sure you watched the presidential debate, but this is a different scene for President Trump out there. Is there a large crowd out there today? Are there a lot of Minnesotans heading out there to see the president in person?
Yeah, people are still filing in, so it's really hard to get a sense of exactly how big the crowd is. But as we were coming in, talking to supporters, we heard people who are from St. Paul, the capital down in the Twin Cities, Brainerd, which is a smaller town up here in northern Minnesota. So people are really coming from all across the state to come up here and see the president. And I do have to say, this area, this is our 8th congressional district, is a place that the president has really focused on during his campaign. He was here just about a week and a half ago holding another rally, and as I was talking to people, they said they think it means something that after this big night of the debate, he chose to come here next. Trump lost Minnesota by 1.5% in 2016, so it was extremely tight here. And right after that election, the president said that Minnesota is on his list, a place that he wants to get to. So it's obvious that he is committed this time in 2020 to getting support and gaining support here in Minnesota.
Now, early voting has started in Minnesota, so are you seeing a lot more voters paying attention to what's going on?
Well, Daytona, I think in this election, all Americans are paying attention to what's going on. But I do think with early voting conversations, it gets a lot of people engaged. And of course, when you have politicians visiting, we've had Joe Biden and his campaign stop several times in the state as well. I think it just brings it to the forefront of people. And, they're constantly being reminded about this election going on. And so I think that the people of Minnesota are really in tune. Of course, we had a busy summer here with the death of George Floyd that sparked peaceful protests, but also unrest in our cities, which really made a lot of Minnesotans also politically involved. So I think not only is this a place that was a tight race in 2016, but is a place where a lot of people are paying attention to politics right now.
Just last night, Hannah, we saw those protests going on in Cleveland. Have there been any protests out there in Minnesota? Because, of course, we do know the background of the George Floyd case being out there. So I want to know if there's been any uprising out there of any sort.
Well, shortly after George Floyd's death, there was about a week or so down in Minneapolis that was busy. There was a lot of unrest. We've had a few spark-ups here and there, but we're not seeing what they're seeing like in Portland, where it's day after day. We have seen many, peaceful protests or big marches in the last few weeks, but there hasn't been too many incidents that we've heard of, that we've seen of things getting violent. So things have remained fairly peaceful, at least in the Twin Cities, in the metro area, unlike some of these other places that we're seeing flare up with violence. But I will say, activists, protesters are still very active down in the Twin Cities, especially as, the case with the 4 officers involved with George Floyd, as that makes its way through the court process.
All right, thank you so much. Again, that's Hannah Flood out there. She's a Fox reporter. We'll be keeping an eye on this rally that's going to be happening with President Trump in Minnesota. Thanks for joining us. All right, so again, you're watching News Now from Fox. We're